Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we'll be doing a debrief for Canva's story. We'll be doing key takeaways, the reasons that she stayed, plus the things we want for her going forward. But for those of you who have not listened to her story yet, here is a brief summary. So Canva grew up knowing that whatever was going on inside of her could make other people feel worse. So often she just kept things to herself. And Canva was sexually assaulted when she was younger. She had an eating disorder when she was younger and developed low self-worth, and there was emotional abuse from her brother as well. And she could just never safely talk about these things with her family. So she became a conflict avoider and tried to handle her problems by herself as a survival mechanism. And when Canva met her abuser at the age of 22, she felt the connection was just out of this world, and he made her feel accepted and understood and safe. And within a week, they were saying that they loved each other and they were just imagining a future together. Canva purchased the RVs they lived in, paid the rent when he had no money, and continued supporting their plans as they moved from place to place. And after they moved into a house together, Canva became pregnant, and that is when the abuser's behavior changed. He began dismissing her concerns as her being hormonal, irrational, and crazy. And the person who had once made her feel understood was now using her pregnancy to invalidate almost everything that she was saying. And after their son was born, Canva did all the parenting, all the household responsibilities. The abuser left for work for months at a time and then returned with very little money. And when he decided he did not want to work, Canva took a night job at a casino while continuing to take care of their baby during the day. She cooked before leaving for work, pumped milk during her shift, returned home in the middle of the night, and woke up with the baby a few hours later. And when she finally said something had to change here, the abuser then hid her keys, took the rent money she had saved, and threw her phone into a blackberry bush. And the abuser then threatened to get her fired. Therefore, if they did separate, they would both be unemployed when he took her to court for custody. And this had Canva feeling trapped. She didn't know what to do. And in response, she smashed his car window. And then the abuser called the police and said that Canva had gone crazy for no reason. And this was a self-defense response. This was a fed-up reaction response to the abuse that Canva was enduring from him. And that showed up again when the abuser eventually again shoves Canva and their young child into a wall, and Canva reacted by hitting him, and he once again called the police while leaving out what happened first. And this makes Canva start to feel that her reactions to this abuse are not normal and that she may be at fault. There's shame attached to this as well while this is going on. And as this relationship continued, Canva paid the bills. She paid for groceries. She did the cooking, cleaning, childcare, and a lot of the work that was required to keep their farm going. And Canva was being further isolated as well by not being allowed to see her two friends who saw through the abuser for who he was. Meanwhile, while all of this stuff is going on, the abuser here is smearing Canva to the community, telling people that she is mean. And Canva did eventually try to leave the abuser, but in response, he became very apologetic to try to keep her. He then got her pregnant again, and that is when the abuse really started to rise back up again. And eventually, Canva does end this relationship for good after the abuser locked her out of the home while their 3-year-old son remained inside. And the abuse here did continue after the separation, and Canva did eventually receive a full custody order after he failed to appear in court. And now he is just spreading lies to the community about her still, that she's keeping the kids away from him, and that this still remains a very painful thing for Canva to have to endure, not being able to correct people's false opinions about her. And that is really everything in Canva's story in this summary. And now we're going to do the key takeaways from Canva's story. So the first takeaway from Canva's story is her reaction to abuse became the kindling to the gaslighting. So a big part of Canva's story is not that she broke a car window or that she hit him. It was that these two moments are the only moments anyone else is ever told about. So the police are only told about this. This is the abuser's story that he is telling everyone, even the people in the community. And Canva does not deny either one. She did smash his car window and she did hit him during another incident. And she carries regret about this. She carries shame about this. But what her former partner, the abuser, understood and what he used is that her honesty about these moments was just a really valuable piece that he had in his pocket. So when the police came for both of these incidents, they only heard about what she had done, and that is what he was emphasizing. The abuser here was building a false identity of Canva to others and to herself, portraying her as the abuser, saying that she becomes violent, unstable, and that she is very dangerous. And he becomes the reasonable one while telling these stories, who was attacked for no reason, and that he is the one that needs protection. And the abuser is taking a kernel of truth here and then gaslighting Canva, telling lies about her and smearing her to others. And this keeps her in the relationship longer, as the reality here is being bent for her to not trust herself, but as well as the others in the community and even the police not trusting her or listening to her version of things as well. And the next big takeaway is gaslighting and the need to start recording conversations. And the abuser would tell Canva that she had yelled the entire time when she remembered speaking normally. And the abuser would tell her that she had said things that she has no memory of all about saying these things. And he was playing with her reality as her being mean and being the abuser so she wouldn't trust herself. And it was working. But even though it was working, there was still part of her that was still not convinced fully. So Canva started recording their conversations on her phone so she could go back and listen. And she had lost confidence in her own mind, and she just needed this recording to tell her what had happened in the actual room that she was standing in when all of these things were being said or supposedly being said. That's how badly the abuser was playing with her reality. And these recordings were how Canva stayed attached to her own life and her own reality to know that she was not the person that this person was saying, that this gaslighting was working, and she needed to use these recordings to know exactly what was actually going on. And some of you out there might need to do this as well. And the next thing on our list is that every conflict in Canva's story turned into a trial about her character. And Canva and the abuser were not arguing at all about the same events. She described it as coexisting in alternate realities. So the abuser's version was she was always the problem, and the problem was always her mind, raised a concern, and Canva was being hormonal. If Canva got upset, she was crazy. If Canva asked for support, she was demanding. And when Canva would react to being trapped, she was then called abusive. And if she were to feel anything at all, she was then just blowing things out of proportion. And I know a lot of you out there right now are listening to this and feeling validated that this is happening to you. So at that point, the dishes stopped being about the dishes. Money stopped being about his refusal to contribute. Every one of these conversations then got converted into a hearing, like a trial hearing, in which Canva had to establish that she was sane, loving, and safe before any of the issues could be raised at all. And then the original issue never got raised at all. And this is how a character trial works here. It doesn't resolve anything. It exhausts the person who brought the complaint up, and then the complaint will disappear, because every time this complaint is brought up, the person then attacks the character of Canva. And I know this is happening to you as well, who's listening to this right now. And the next thing on our list is triangulating their community against her. And this does not matter if it is real or not. And this type of triangulation can keep someone isolated, and it did for Canva. And the abuser told Canva that people in the community talked about her. He told her that they thought she was mean. He told her that those same people would never let them babysit their kids, and they would let him babysit their kids. And this had Canva trying to remember conversations, if she gave people a bad impression. And then when she walked into that community every day, she started thinking, she had this belief that everyone has already hated her. And now when you're out in public, all of a sudden here, there's this wedge in between getting help or becoming close with people. So whether they said these things or not, it keeps Canva, and maybe many of you out there as well, from getting the help that they need, because they start thinking that no one will believe them. They have this belief that the community already doesn't like them, and then you can then start interpreting looks on their faces as, oh, this person doesn't like me. So this wedge is now in between. So you can't ask for help. You think the abuser has already put a story out there. In this case, the abuser has been putting a story out there, but the abuser is also smearing the people as well, saying that they are saying mean things about her. So this is creating a wedge between all of these people here. So no one is going to start to talk to each other. And this keeps Canva isolated. And up next, we have financial abuse. And Canva was working the whole time. She had 2 jobs at one point, and she was never financially free for a single day of the relationship. Her income covered rent, food, childcare, utilities, and she got nothing for herself. He kept every dollar that the farm made for himself. When he needed more, he would just pawn her things, and he always had his beer. He always had his cigarettes, every single day. And she was getting nothing. She couldn't save to leave, and he spent everything on himself and more. And this just keeps her in a state of survival and keeps her in a state of just trying to earn enough to keep the house going and, people fed. And this makes it very hard to leave. And the next thing on our list is Canva's pregnancy gave him ammunition based on societal beliefs. So when Canva became pregnant, he used societal beliefs of pregnant women being hormonal to gaslight Canva about being crazy and to refute everything she said as being irrational. So suddenly, Canva was crazy. Canva was hormonal. She was pregnant, and nothing she said made sense because any concern that she was going to raise had this ready-made explanation that had nothing to do with the concern. And this was her pregnancy here is making her hormonal and is making her crazy. In society, this is what we hear, that hormones are causing all these things going on with pregnant women. So it's something that she could believe. So it became a weapon. So if you feel unsupported, hey, that's your hormones. If you question his behavior, hey, that's your hormones. Get upset and being treated badly, hey, it's your hormones. This pregnancy here has been turned into the reason that her voice did not count at all. And I know a lot of you have gone through this as well. And the next big takeaway we have is the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character that this person was. And Canva describes this abuser as being charismatic, funny, adventurous, a person who could make you feel like the most special person in the world. And this is the public version of him that other people got to see. At home, he was cold, degrading, threatening, and volatile. And Canva says the hardest part was the cognitive dissonance of trying to hold both of these men in her head as one person. And she was saying this is one of the reasons why survivors stay quiet. People have met this charming version, not the version you were asking them to believe that they have never seen before. To them, this person is just delightful. So who will they believe? And also, she saw the abuser being nice to everyone as well and thought to herself, well, if she just keeps adjusting herself, maybe she'll become someone that the abuser will be kind to once again as well. And a lot of you are going through this cognitive dissonance and dealing with this exact same thing that Canva was dealing with. And it's a very hard thing to be in, and it can keep you in a relationship longer. And then the next thing on our list, the last key takeaway we have is leaving meant no one is there to protect the kids. And this is a big issue that many parents have. Canva had already heard the abuser scream at their baby. She had watched him shaking their baby as a joke, and she had watched him snap a bedpost trying to drag her off a bed in a room with glass on the floor and their infant sleeping beside it. So for her, there's a lot of fear around the kids and what might happen if she is not there. So staying meant her children stayed in the house. She was there at the same time as a way to protect them. And leaving meant the possibility of them being alone with the abuser where she just couldn't see anything. And for her, she felt helpless if that was what was going to be going on. There was no way to protect them without her in the home. So she stayed for a reason a lot of mothers stay. And it's not because she thought it would get better. It's just at least there was room for her to see that the kids were going to be safe. And it's a no-win situation here when it comes to this. So that's one of the reasons why Canva stayed. We had that as a key takeaway. We'll be hammering this one home in a second as well for a second time. And so when we're talking about the reasons Canva stayed, we're going to now give you a bunch of different reasons. And the first one is the beginning was real and he kept giving it back to her. So at the beginning for Canva, she describes this period as the happiest she's ever been. And when bad things started to happen, he would apologize and say all the right things. He'd be funny and he would make her feel like the most special person in the world again. And every time he did this, he was proving that the man from the beginning still existed and was still reachable. So she was staying for the person that she kept seeing after these abuses started to occur. So that kept her in the relationship. Another reason she stayed, she did not want to raise these two children alone. To her, having a nuclear family mattered. It was the picture she had in her head her whole life, and giving that up meant destroying that dream. So leaving was never just about leaving him. It was accepting that her children would grow up without their father in the house and that she would be the one that was going to decide that for these children. And she just didn't want to have to make that decision. She wanted to keep this family together. She wanted these two children to have a dad inside the house. And that was another reason why she stayed. And then another reason we have here is that eventually Canva could not trust her own account of her life. And she was told she was crazy and hormonal and aggressive and abusive. And by the end, she was recording her own conversations so she could go back afterward and find out what had actually been said in their conversations with each other. And Canva was just trying to work out whether she'd been abused while the abuser was telling her that she was the problem. Her reality here became distorted. She kept working on herself, which was the entire point by the abuser. And the entire point here was to keep her in this relationship. So this was another reason why she was staying, because she just couldn't trust her own reality and she didn't know if she was the abusive one or not, if she was the mean one or not. So this is how she's also being kept in this relationship. And another reason why she was in this relationship for so long is because she was isolated, and the abuser here told her that the community thought she was mean. And eventually, Canva did find two women at a restaurant that she could confide in, and he shut that down immediately. They knew too much, and he was not comfortable with having them around. So she was isolated from the community, and when she did find two people, he made her cut those people out of her life, and this has kept her in this relationship longer as well. And then we have the financial abuse that was going on. And as we mentioned, Canva, she made the money and it went into keeping the household intact. And he spent money on himself. She couldn't find a way to save to get herself out. And he also threatened her employment directly. So when you're trying to leave a relationship, you need housing, transportation, childcare, food. You need to hire a lawyer or get off work. You have all these things going at once. And she never had any footing when it came to this. All of the money was going to keep this household intact as is. She wasn't able to save. And this type of financial abuse kept her in this relationship longer. And then we also have the exhaustion of this relationship. And by the end, she was doing everything: the cooking, the cleaning, taking care of the kids, working, the bills. She was working a casino shift until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up at 5:30 with the baby so he could sleep in until she made his coffee. So she's exhausted at this point. And when you are this exhausted, it's hard to think about leaving, because leaving takes planning. energy, phone calls, paperwork, just the ability to think for a certain amount of time. And Canva did not have any time at all. She didn't have hours to spare at all. So while you're in this exhausted state and not being able to do all the things that you need to do to leave, this is one of the reasons why you're going to be kept in this relationship longer. So being kept exhausted can keep one in this relationship longer. It happened at Canva, and I'm sure it's happening to many of you out there as well. And another reason why it was difficult for Canva to leave was even when she did leave, there was love bombing or the old him that came back. So every time Canva was pulling away, she left and went to her parents. He apologized and became the old version of himself. He wanted to be the father and rebuild the family, so she came back. Then the abuser shows up again. So leaving brings him back. So every time she tried to leave, this love bombing would happen. She would then come back. Eventually, he does become the old person again, and that cycle can continue. But this type of love bombing, as soon as there's this pull away, keeps her in this relationship longer as well. And then, as we mentioned before, leaving presented a different set of risks. And as we mentioned before, with Canva here, either she stayed with the children to make sure that they were protected, or she were to leave and not have any idea what would happen to them in his presence because of his volatility and because of this person's abusive nature. So walking away was not easy. The risk of leaving meant that their children here were not going to be protected in the way that she wanted. So the choice in front of her was not danger versus safety. It's just danger versus danger. It is a no-win situation, and coming up with an answer for this can keep you in a relationship much longer because you don't know what to do. And so many of you out there are dealing with this as well. So those were, the key takeaways that we've discussed and the reasons why Canva stayed. And I'm sure a lot of you could resonate with everything that was being said there, and hopefully are validated by everything was said there as well. And now the thing that I want for Canva going forward is, as much as it hurts, don't try to rebut the smear that was going on. Canva can spend the rest of her life on trying to rebut that to the community of people that listen to the abuser. There was so much going on that these people have no idea was going on at all. And I'm sure Canva can produce all of the receipts for everything. And there's just some people that are going to take the abuser's side of the story. And these people in the community, they picked a side a long time ago. And the evidence is not what is holding it up. It's this person's persona that is holding it up completely. And it hurts to have to go through this and to have people still believe the abuser, but correcting it will only make it hurt more and just take up a lot of your time and will not get you anywhere. And sometimes you just have to be the villain in someone else's story, and that is okay. Those who are in your life are the ones that matter most going forward, and the people that you should be concentrating on. So for Canva, I just want her to concentrate on the people that are in her life and not try to rebut what was actually going on. And I want this for all of you out there as well. And that is the end of this episode. I hope you found this debrief episode, helpful, enlightening, validating. And if you want to be a guest like Canva was on our Survivor Story episodes, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Click on the guest form button, fill out the form, and we'll go from there. We also have a support group at our website, so if you need support, join our support group today. And we also have a newsletter at our website where you get a free workbook for every new Survivor Story. And that is all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's debrief episode. So for myself and Canva, we hope you have a good night.